You were smart.
Because it's such a delicate thing, and you want people to come together and say, oh, I never thought of that. But at the same time, I have to realize that not everyone's in that place. Some people are still.
And good morning. Today we are covering the most interesting of subjects. But wait, before we get started, it's the end of May. Like, how have you been doing? How's it going? I feel like it's been a month since we saw each other.
No, I'm telling you, well, first off, I feel like there's a shift happening and there's so much more movement and energy, and I've missed it. This time last year, it was not this way. So to get to be together and to see this, I just feel like there's a new buzz and energy going on. And yeah, and I'm excited to talk today. I really am. I'm really here to listen and learn today. But
That's a perfect way to say it. We're here to listen and learn. So without further ado, let me just jump right in because we've got a lot to cover and it's really interesting. So today we're talking about cryptocurrency. I personally don't know much about it, except that I get a lot of friend requests from people and that I've never heard of before on Facebook. And then when I click to see who they are, if we have any connections, the only thing that says is that they're a Bitcoin miner or something like that. And I'm like, how did you get my name? But it seems like all the rage since the pandemic began. And I don't think I'm alone or hesitant in taking the bait. So we brought in an expert, Katheryn Carlisle, so we can learn a little bit more, get clarity on the facts and myths, before we really make a solid decision as to whether we want to jump on the Bitcoin or the cryptocurrency train. And so with that, Amy, I know that Katheryn is a dear friend of yours. She has like the most amazing resume I've ever seen. Would you mind introducing everyone to Katheryn, please?
yes, so Katheryn Carlisle she is a very dear friend of mine. We wanted to have her on because to me, she has been so inspiring and just a big game changer. She's a forward thinker and I'm always inspired by her to learn. And that's what I do is I just feel like I love to listen and learn with Katheryn. So I'm going to read y'all a little bit about her and then I'll hand it back over to Adora. What we love about her is that she has been involved in so many different capacities and organizations, but she really does care about Arkansas and she wants us to be ahead of the game. And she has a passion for this state and for our people. And she really wants us to make sure we're aware of that. So she is currently the Senior Managing Director of the Blockchain Center of Excellence at the Walton College. And she teaches Introduction to Cryptocurrency to undergraduate business students. So she's at the U of A up in Northwest Arkansas. The Blockchain Center of Excellence just recently launched, this is really cool, y'all, the Women in Blockchain Initiative, which seeks to highlight female leaders, which is perfect for Women Gather Group in the industry, as well as use cases that support or promote women. She also founded Distributed Tech Partners in 2018. DTP is a blockchain and cryptocurrency consulting business that enable her to lead product design, manage communities, educate clients, and launch blockchain-based pilot projects with businesses, startups, and nonprofits. She is a Little Rock native who has been studying and investing in this arena since 2014, y'all. That's over 6 years. She holds, listen to this, a master's of digital currency from the University of, pronounce it for me. Yeah, in Cyprus, the first institution in the world to offer this degree. She is a proud alumni of the U of A, where she received a dual degree in international business and Spanish language. Her passion for this subject is rooted in the potential for cryptocurrency to socially impact the world through initiatives like financial inclusion and sustainability. Pretty amazing. So that's Katheryn for you. If it goes to show just how passionate she is about this, we're going to learn and dive in a little bit more. But Adora, I'll pass it back to you now.
Yeah, well, again, Katheryn, we just want to thank you for being here today. Like I said, I was blown away by your resume, but it also tells us that you are the best person to answer all of these confusing questions. I think most recently yesterday, I saw something about Bitcoin and stocks on the news, and I'm always seeing things on my timeline and I don't know what to make of anything. So you're the perfect person. So with that, are you ready to dive in?
I am so ready and just completely honored to even be included on what
you have built, you both of you, with the Women Gather, and I just look and admire what you've done to create community here. And so I'm excited to be able to come and talk. I consider myself a learner in this space as much as anybody. I just dedicate more time to it because it's my job, right? And so I am helpful for answering questions, but I wouldn't trust anyone who says that they know everything there is to know about crypto. But I will do the absolute best I can to answer and help you out with the information that I have.
Well, thank you. Very cool. Okay, so this is how this is going to go. We have a series of questions for you. We did post some myths versus facts for everyone to kind of ponder yesterday to get ready for the conversation. So in the middle of the conversation, we'll stop and let you dispel those. And then as everyone knows who's joining us today, if you have any questions for Katheryn, if you have any comments about your experiences, anything, drop them in the comments and we would love to include you in the conversation. Okay, so first of all and foremost, what the heck is cryptocurrency?
This is such a loaded question, but I think I've gotten it to a spot where we can talk about it with somebody as a concept without being really crazy technical with it.
Okay.
So cryptocurrency in its most simple, explanation is a digital form of money that has all of the traditional behind the scenes banking and payment processing systems algorithmically coded into that software. And that software is managed and updated by a global network of computers all working independently to verify and share this financial information with each other. So this is an entirely new online model for money that was created by an anonymous person or group of persons over a decade ago in an online chat forum. It was launched in 2009 with a pseudonym under Satoshi Nakamoto. That's where you hear that name. So since that time, it's evolved and spun off into a lot of different versions and what we know of things like altcoins or Ethereum and so on, because the benefits of cryptocurrency have been realized by people all over the world. Peer-to-peer payments are faster and cheaper and safer and more inclusive than what we've had before. So all we've ever known are centralized models for money. That means your bank, your credit card company, your sovereign government. These are institutions that inefficiently and abusively control sometimes how one of us here today interacts with money. And so decentralized cryptocurrencies are the future of money and the beginning of more equitable financial economies.
Wow. Okay. So you did say that it was established in 2009. So why is it all over my timeline now? Was it the pandemic that made it rise in popularity, or are we just late, coming to the game?
No, I think that's absolutely one major part of it. Like you mentioned, in the last year, there are a few significant events that have taken place that led to major increases in price, which in turn is what the mainstream media picks up and gives it a little bit more visibility. So first, you're absolutely right. The COVID-19 pandemic, people were seeking a safe haven, a hedge against this economic crisis that was happening really all across the world. The second thing would probably be in May 2020 last year, there is this special change that took place in Bitcoin that only happens every 4 years, and it's called the halvening, HAVLENING, like a half. And it's where it marks this time where the financial incentives for those computers that are running the network, as well as the new currency being issued out, it decreases by half. So the supply of only about 21 million Bitcoin will ever exist. And that halvening creates a lot more scarcity in the market, and that drives up the value. The third thing, which is probably what we can see the most, are these institutional investors that are starting to buy in and diversify their portfolios, right, with cryptocurrencies. So there are companies like MicroStrategies and Tesla and Stripe that are all spending literally billions to add Bitcoin to their balance sheet. So since Bitcoin has been around for over 10 years, it's just kind of starting to become that proven system for institutional investors. And that's where we're getting that traction.
That's cool. And that makes me think of, when you first get your first job and you get your benefits package and you have to pick, and they tell you if you're younger to invest aggressively. And as you get older, you get more conservative. And I think we talked about this in one of our Gather virtuals in the past, but do you think that this is something, cryptocurrency is something that will start being added to those portfolios for options?
I definitely think that there's potential for investors to, I mean, I think in 2020, Bitcoin was the highest performing financial asset,
Wow.
period. That's against all stocks, all bonds, all
Ouch.
of those different financial assets. And yes, it's volatile, but if you're a long-term view holder, you see that it may go up and down, but that bottom floor is consistently going up. And so for certain investors, they can see that potential in the long run as a way to even just, like we said, hedge against maybe some instability in the economy.
Okay. So you got me kind of like hooked. I'm taking the bait, I'm in. So how does it work? Like, how does a newbie get started? Who do they talk to? What do they do?
Yeah. Uh, so I guess you could think of it in three different categories when you want to talk about like different cryptocurrencies and where you could plug in. First, there's currency, and that's just like purely money, right? Like with qualities of good money. So these are things like Bitcoin or Litecoin or Monero. They are durable and portable and divisible and something called fungible, which means they're all the same. You can count on all of them having the same value. Second, there's operating system tokens. So there's things like Ethereum or EOS or Cardano. And it's cool to think of these like an iOS operating system rather than a currency because they weren't designed to be an alternative monetary system, but to facilitate these applications that are built on their platforms. And then the third way you could kind of dive in is through NFTs. And these are non-fungible tokens. So we just learned that fungible was, they're all the same. Non-fungible means they're all unique. And there is a high scarcity of these things. And this is, I think, what's best depending upon what you're interested in and passionate about, because you can always, look at those top pure cryptocurrency coins on things like CoinMarketCap, or you can dive deeper and look at altcoins or tokens, and they're very mission driven or have a purposeful feature behind them that they chose to build in. And it's fun to kind of see and dig into that utility. What's the purpose behind that coin? And then for NFTs, they're for fun. If you like collectibles or sports or digital art, it's that same value you get out of there. So I am required to say, like, I am not a financial advisor. I'm not legally licensed to give advice. I'm an educator. And so anything you decide to invest in is 100% up to you. But I, as far as like things, those are the three things you could really look into investing in. As far as amount, that's a different conversation too. And I think the best answer is whatever you can afford to lose, because getting skin in the game is the best way to learn. But I would never want someone to place a bet on anything like their life savings or your kids' education fund. It's always what you can afford to lose, but what's a good incentive for you to learn about it and have some skin in the game. One unique thing about investing in crypto, and this is kind of a common misconception for people who are just starting to learn about this, you don't have to invest one full Bitcoin. Because it's digital, like we talked about what good money is, extremely divisible. So that means it supports things like microtransactions. So it goes down to 8 decimal places. You could buy 0.00000001 Bitcoin. And so microtransactions aren't profitable for banks or credit card companies. So they don't like, the 50-cent tips or for reading an online article or 75 cents for a cup of coffee, right? I mean, like they don't want you to have those micro tipping abilities because their fees are so high. And so with microtransactions and cryptocurrency, that helps digital creators and journalists monetize their work. So that's kind of how you can dive in and a small amount is possible.
Okay, cool. Amy, what questions do you have?
And you sharing that, I've never thought about it, especially, here we have a creative space and a coffee shop. And so we have people that do a lot of their work online. They are digital creators and innovators. And I feel like there's kind of an issue now where they're not getting credit for their work or paid properly. And so you saying like you can actually tie it to compensation for these, creatives that may deserve that, but they're not quite getting the credit and the pay that they need. And so thinking about it like that, it makes so much more sense.
It does.
And so yeah, that's just right in our lane, because it's conversations I'm hearing people have out in the lobby every so often. Like that is an issue right now with the way kind of our money system is set up, specifically with printed money. And it's been a big topic I've heard in the creative community.
So as a business owner like Amy, like how would this be advantageous to her? Like how could she get started with Bitcoin mining, maybe for her shop or her employees or something like that?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And it's also a loaded question in that money can mean a lot of different things, but it generally has three functions.
Right.
So money can be a medium of exchange, like you would go pay Amy for a cup of coffee at her coffee shop.
Mhm.
It could be a unit of account, which is what you see on the Nexus menu when it says, something is $3.50. That's how we know what that unit is. And then it could be a store of value. So there are different trade-offs between those. No form of money performs all three functions perfectly. And I would deem Bitcoin specifically as a store of value. So that's equivalent to something like digital gold that holds value over time. The good news is that there are different cryptocurrencies and ways that people can use it as a medium of exchange if you wanted to purchase something online. And that might be something like Litecoin or something that's built for higher transaction volume. And so if you as a business owner wanted to put Bitcoin on your balance sheet, that may be a good thing to invest in for a longer term store of value, which would be a different approach than if you wanted to just accept cryptocurrency as payment, which is definitely valid. I paid for my wedding band in Bitcoin, which is kind of crazy to think about now, but it can, as long as we both agree that has value, you can accept that as a form of payment. And for businesses, there's just different applications that you can download. The point is that users should never really know that they're using cryptocurrency versus a dollar, right? Like the user experience should be good and smooth the whole way through. It's the back end that people get really confused and caught up in. And if designers and developers are doing this and developing cryptocurrency applications in a way that people don't even necessarily need to know what blockchain is. You can use the internet and not know how to code, JavaScript. Like there's different ways people can interact. And so lots of applications are out there for business owners and individuals to download and use. Things like Coinbase is probably the most popular type of application if you wanted to start playing around with cryptocurrency a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, and seeing it in, like you said, the perspective of like a business using it versus an individual, like there's just different kind of areas to look at this. But the biggest thing is like educating yourself,
yeah,
and feeling like it's valuable in your eyes. Because if you don't feel that way or someone else, it's hard to create a relationship there. Even though it's transactional, you still want to have trust when you're giving and taking forms of payment. And you want people to go, oh yeah, I know this, I'm familiar with this. And so since this is, in a way, it's been around a decade, but as you can tell, I mean, it's even sitting here, talking with you, it goes to show that there's still a lot more that we have to learn in this process, especially with a business being involved in it.
Definitely. I think what's interesting for me is I think, as you're progressing as an adult, like you go through your 20s and then you get in your 30s and 40s. And the big thing in my 30s was people were investing in like Melaleuca or Plexus or carrot bars. And then, like I said, over the pandemic, it was this Bitcoin thing. So, it's hard to, I don't think from what you're saying, I know Bitcoin is not a hoax, but it's hard to differentiate. So when you have someone coming at you, or like I said, I have all these random people that I've never heard of in my life that want to be friends with me on Facebook or Instagram, and they're Bitcoin miners. Like, how do you weed out like the fraudulent people versus the real deal?
That's a really good question. It definitely is a concern when there's a new type of technology and people can see value being created in a space. There's always someone who's going to use that as an opportunity to take advantage of people. And so you have to be very, very careful. I'd say one of the most common mistakes that people make is not doing their own research or due diligence. Before I buy any cryptocurrency, I am Googling the founders, I'm reading their white papers, I'm checking their code analytics on GitHub. I'm joining their online communities on Discord or Telegram. Traditional financial markets today have analysts and wealth advising companies doing this thing 24/7, doing this type of research for investors. And that does not exist in this space. And it won't for a long time until regulators catch up and let licensed financial advisors buy Bitcoin for you. But for right now, that's extremely difficult, if not impossible, to do legally. So you have to take the time to learn for yourself. Then after that, it takes more learning about how to store it safely and correctly so that you don't lose it. Any second that people can take these like short-term gain mindsets, it's going to be pretty dangerous to going forward with all the opportunities that are going to be thrown at you that are really scams in the end. And so a good way to think about that, I think you mentioned someone reached out to you and said that they were a Bitcoin miner. And that blew my mind when I heard that, because the first thing I thought is, if they're a real Bitcoin miner, they're not reaching out to you. That's like the people who are, creating the fake pastor accounts. Like, hey, I need to ask you for money on Instagram. Like, that's never going to happen. If they're a legitimate miner, which is something we can talk about, like how that process works, they're going to be invested in, they're going to have capital there. That getting in that is very expensive, and they're not going to go ask people for money online. So that's definitely a red flag.
You need to say that louder for the people in the back.
Lots of red flags in this space. Please do your research, because someone is just waiting to take advantage. Yeah.
That's good to know. And I literally get inundated. And like I said, I'm always like, how do these people even find my information? But so yes, a message to walk away with today is, if you're getting hit up by hundreds of Bitcoin miners on Instagram or Facebook, they're not the real deal.
Ignore.
Run, delete, block.
Yeah.
Okay, so what are some common mistakes people make when they get started with getting involved with Bitcoin mining? I know you said to do your due diligence and do your research before you get involved, which I think is a good pointer, but what are some other, things that people need to just be mindful of when they're first getting into this?
Yeah. Well, I think we might need to even go back a little bit,
Okay.
because there's a little nuance that I think everyone should know. You can hold Bitcoin without being a miner. You can just go buy some as a person. But then you can also be a node on the network. So we talked about this global network of computers that is all sharing information and talking to each other. A node is a more simple form to just engage with the community. Anyone with internet access can join this network by downloading Bitcoin core software, and it requires the full transaction history of the entire Bitcoin network on your machine. So this takes a lot of space on your computer and up to 2 weeks of time to initially set up. So this is what we call a full node. You have the ledger on your computer, and other people you're talking to other computers and they're referencing it and just all agreeing that these are all valid. These are valid transactions. That's how it maintains that consensus, that agreement across the network, is a lot of people have this full transaction history on their computer. It's a fun way to participate if you have an old reliable laptop lying around and don't live in a place with super expensive energy bills. But you're not going to get those mining rewards for processing blocks if you're just a node. Here's everyone pay attention. You don't have to be a miner to participate on the network as a node, but you do have to be a node to be a miner. So they're not mutually exclusive. Yeah, it's a little complicated, but being a miner has a lot more requirements and is a much larger investment because it requires specialized hardware or these machines, and it requires a lot more energy. So mining in Japan, this is where it gets tricky too. We've been talking about Bitcoin. If you want to talk about other coins, there may be other different types of systems people have created, like a different iteration of Bitcoin that you can mine at home, and that it does make sense. But if we're talking Bitcoin mining or what Bitcoin uses is called proof of work. If there are other currencies like Ethereum using proof of work, that's going to essentially not be profitable for an individual to mine at home unless you have a very specified machine. And they're called ASICs, and they can cost, $5,000. It's a heavy, that's what I'm saying. These miners, they're having heavy investment on the front end. So they're going to be well funded because it's not cheap to get into if we're talking about proof of work mining. And then the energy that comes from that it has to be very specially regulated with these machines. It's a lot to jump into Bitcoin mining as an individual, but there are definitely good resources. It is not impossible. I have a couple friends that have miners in their offices at home. It just takes a lot more requirement than just joining the network as a node or just holding on to Bitcoin as somebody who has that in their digital wallet.
So the everyday Joe should just get some Bitcoin to hold on to. That's the easiest way.
Without giving financial advice, I think that's a great idea. If you want to learn about it, if you want to learn, that's the best way to start. That's how I started, was just kind of coming from this background of international finance and looking at this thing and saying, I think I want to have just a little bit of it, and having that little bit helps you incentivize you to, oh, that new article came out today. What's going on over there? What's happening with this new regulation coming out? And it just helps you read a little bit more every day. But I think that's absolutely the safest and the cheapest way to start learning and get involved with cryptocurrency. Okay.
Amy, do you have any questions before we jump into our myths and facts?
That's what I was going to ask, and at the end too, like, we would love any resources that are out there. But really, if you want to get started, am I still frozen?
No, we can hear you.
Am I still frozen?
No.
Okay, if I freeze, then y'all continue on. But like she said, that's a great starting point for us. So really, if you're new to this, the beginning phase is just saying, okay, I just want to kind of take a step back and be able to do step one. And so I think that's the most important thing is, before we leave, we'll make sure we link some resources that Katheryn shares with us. So if you have interest and you just want to get started, then we can do that.
Cool. Okay, so are you ready for some facts versus myths, Katheryn?
I am ready.
Okay, number one, is this a fact or a myth? cryptocurrency is not taxed?
That is a fact and a myth. um, because it is, if you turn your cryptocurrency back into US dollars, right? If let's say I put $10 in Coinbase and then I take it out when it's $20, I'm going to be taxed on the gain. If you make any money, if that appreciates, you're going to be taxed on that $10 gain that you had. And so, yes, you will be taxed by the US government from that appreciation of your asset. If you simply hold cryptocurrency and you don't sell any of it, they are not going to tax you for holding cryptocurrency. The most recent tax documents I went through, it does change every year. Thank God I'm not a tax lawyer. That stuff just, I don't know how you keep up. I think I am in a fast moving industry. But tax laws, I think the most recent that just came out with the IRS is they're asking, do you hold or do you have any cryptocurrency? And if you do, you want to answer yes, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's taxable because you're holding it.
Oh, that's good to know.
Only taxable if you sell it.
Okay, that's great to know. Okay,
Yeah.
number 2, cryptocurrency doesn't have any real money value.
That's
Fact
a-
or myth?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that's a hard myth for several reasons. Because cryptocurrency is, like Bitcoin, is based on supply and demand. So there's no formula that's ever going to tell you the price of Bitcoin. There's no such thing. It's the same with all assets in markets like that. It's based upon, everyone agrees that it has value. If people want it, the price goes up. So back to economics 101, right? And there's value in the network size being what it is, as well as these miners that we talked about, they're using they're using capital investment into machines. They're using energy. These things are costs. These are resources that have value to them, that are underpinning this entire network, and people taking the time to do this with these machines. And so there is value in that intrinsically. But if we're not talking about Bitcoin, there are other things that do have underlying value. Some cryptocurrencies may be pegged to a traditional physical currency like the US dollar. Or there's some other really interesting projects out there that are bundling assets, or they may be pegged on, the Japanese yen and the British pound and the US dollar all wrapped together, or maybe they're pegged to oil prices. There's tons of things that have intrinsic value, is a really kind of funny term when you look at all the different areas with it. But I would say that's a myth. It definitely has a value behind it.
Okay, cool. Number 3, do you have the list too, Amy? I can share some of these with you. There are more than 6,700 types of cryptocurrency being publicly traded.
I don't know the exact number, but that sounds about right, like a fact. That there are thousands of cryptocurrencies out there. You could honestly get online right now, and if you knew how to program correctly, you could create a Dora coin or Amy coin, and you could, add yourself to the list. But there are only probably a smaller, more narrow group of what I would call vetted cryptocurrencies, and you can research more about those. I'll send you links on how to find kind of what the top most popular ones are going to have larger communities and people who are checking on that, saying, this is a good option. But what's exciting about that is the opportunities and the potential are endless with all the things that we can now tokenize on the internet, where we didn't have value to digitally trade before, we now can. One good example of that, there might be, something called land coin. You can take physical real estate and tokenize that into a digital form, and it makes it so much easier to buy and sell and trade. And so that's where you're seeing thousands of different types of coins, is because they may have different purposes, different missions behind them, or features that allow you to do different things. So that's why the combinations are really exciting to watch.
I did not know that. Oh my gosh. That's just like, and you can see how many doors open up when there's over 6,700, kinds, but there's obviously some that are, most common. But I did not realize that.
Do you want to do a fact or myth?
Let's see, what's our next one? Okay, there are fact or myth. This is number 4, and then we've got 2 more. There are legal forms of digital money.
In the US, no, it is not illegal to own cryptocurrency. The nuance, I hate that these are all nuanced, but that's kind of the nature of cryptocurrency. It depends on where you live. Most places, it is either not regulated, meaning it's not illegal, but they don't really talk about it in their regulation at all, or it is completely legal and they're working on regulations. There are countries, China has most recently tried to essentially ban things like public permissionless cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin. So that means that it's not illegal to hold it, but it's illegal to sell, to trade it with anyone. And so regulation gets really tricky. The insight I want to share with you about Bitcoin, and if somebody's worried that like, oh, the government can shut it down, this is a decentralized network, and that's one of the strengths of decentralization, is that if you essentially have internet access, the government can't shut it down. They would have to shut down the internet. That's what makes it so powerful and compelling to people who live in states where the government is corrupt or trying to freeze accounts, is that they don't have control over these digital wallets in this decentralized network. So the government can try to ban it. They can say they ban it. Can they truly enact that and enforce it? No, not if you're allowed to have free internet access.
Wow. You want to hit number 5?
Yeah, you may do the next one.
Yes, please.
Okay, so next one is there is no central bank managing the money supply. Therefore, it is expected that the currency will grow in value. Fact or myth?
It's hard to say fact when you're talking about a future prediction, but I lean towards that one for a couple reasons. One is that there is no central bank. That's absolutely correct. It is borderless. This is a global digital currency. And so anyone in the world could, from the Netherlands to South Africa to Argentina to Arkansas, can join this network. And what makes that exciting is that it's not limited to the population of one country. So when we talk about those supply and demand factors, we know that there could be a very large demand for something that is considered cross-border global currency. The second reason is that we can expect it not being controlled and borderless to not necessarily, well, when we talk about value, I'll just leave it at that. I don't want to give any say anything that could get me in trouble. But yeah, I think with price speculation, it's hard to nail it that way, but know that there's a huge underpinning demand pool that could potentially be there.
Cool. And do you want to do number 6?
Okay, this is our last one. I think we're going to get this one pretty quick. At this point, I hope we already all know this one. The last myth or fact, cryptocurrencies are not accepted as a form of payment.
Big myth. Yeah, you can Google places that accept cryptocurrency, and they're almost not even fully up to date, but there's lists of thousands of retail stores.
Really?
Uh,
Can you name some that
yeah,
are common?
Overstock.com fully accepts cryptocurrency. I work a lot with Heifer International, who's based in Little Rock. They accept cryptocurrency as a donation.
Oh, wow.
We built a donation platform for people to donate cryptocurrencies. Lots of other places, hotels. Like I said, I paid for my wedding band in cryptocurrency. It's a list you can find on the internet or possibly locally. Sometimes I think in Fayetteville, Prelude Breakfast Bar, they accept some, I not maybe not Bitcoin, but like Stellar for cryptocurrency for breakfast. Like it's really funny. Yeah, you can find spots around that definitely accept it.
Interesting. Well, that was going to lead me to my next question. Can you name some common types of cryptocurrency besides Bitcoin?
Yeah, I would maybe think about it in like forms of like different models or
Mhm.
different wrappers, kind of like if you wrapped an asset in a different form, because they can all look different, but they may have the same wrapper. Um, I would go back to things like currencies. So we had like Bitcoin, Monero, Litecoin, and then you get into things like Ethereum, which are a little bit different. They have those purpose mission driven types of altcoins. There's lots of different altcoins, and that's probably what makes up the majority of that 6,700, different formats or altcoins. And then there's the NFTs. So uh, things like digital online art, you could go to OpenSea.io, and if there things like crypto kitties. It was a fun way for people to interact and use Ethereum and buy a digital cat picture. It blew up in like 2017. People were paying, you know, thousands of dollars for just these little digital online art pieces because they were scarce. Most recently, an artist called Beeple sold an art piece for $69 million in Ethereum, as just a piece of digital art. And so it's pretty crazy. You can approach it in a lot of different forms. Another fun one is like NBA Top Shots, and this may be for your sports fans, but you can buy a moment that happened in sports history, and or your favorite shot from the playoff game. You can own that moment, and it's pretty crazy, but it's fun to go through and see all the things and the prices people will pay for these. Really, I consider things like of sentimental and emotional value when you get into that field.
Wow, that's interesting. I am totally blown away. Like I feel like I got like a like those test reports to see if you want to like take the class. I want to take the class. I have all these ideas going through my head. I think that sounds so awesome. Um, do you think, and I guess I kind of know the answer to this, but let's talk about it a little bit. The Bitcoin rush is on its way out now that the pandemic is coming to an end, or do you think this is just the beginning for this very lucrative industry?
Yeah, I think cryptocurrencies is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to that underlying technology there, which is called blockchain. But you can understand it, the future, I think, by looking a little bit at the past, right? How can we look at similar examples of what evolved over time? And a really common example is telecommunications or the internet. How can we look at what happened there and decide what's going to happen when we're talking about a whole paradigm shift in the way that technology can interact with people and support, things like financial transactions. And so in the same way that the internet really democratized information, it made information available to people in a cheap way, an easy way, an accessible way. Crypto is going to do that and democratize finance, which is really hard to understand if you right now, if you're not kind of with a financial background or a tech background or all of these different specializations that come into it. But it's going to have that ability to really change the world in how we interact with financial services. And that's why it's so important for women to learn about it right now. I love that y'all are so inquisitive about this topic,
Yeah,
because a lot of wealth creation happens at the beginning of an innovation. Think about the rise, start of the internet.
exactly.
That if it's all men, there's no women in there getting that advantage of that first mover opportunity. And so I really am happy that you guys are so interested in just learning the basics. That's where you start.
It does. It reminds me a little bit of like the .com industry. That's what we called it. I grew up in the 90s. And I'm like, and I was thinking that when I was doing some research, like, is this kind of like the 2021 version of like the beginning of the .com industry, you know? And I'm excited about the possibilities, especially now that you've enlightened us and educated us more about everything. So to recap a little bit, for someone who is, you know, just curious, after this conversation, point them in the right direction to kind of learn more and, you know, to maybe go make a purchase of some Bitcoin.
Yeah, I can share some websites with you. My all-time favorite, just beginner blog learning resource website is actually and he's now become this kind of Bitcoin icon. It was from his personal blog, but he curated all of these websites and sources for getting started. And his name's Jameson Lopp, and his website is lopp.net/Bitcoin information. It's one of the best, just
Okay.
full package. If you have very specific needs, like you just want to know the history of it, you want to know what books are good, you want to know who to follow on Twitter, you want to see some video presentations, he's got it all there. So yeah, that's a great place to start. But also in general, maybe buying a book, right? Like maybe buy one book and see who they reference in that book. Mastering Bitcoin is a little bit of a technical book, but it's one of the most classical type of books. And that's by Andreas Antonopoulos. And then Blockchain Revolution by Don and Alex Tapscott is a great, just in general, if you want the overview, you understand basic business principles, those are both really good resources just to get started and see who they talk about and go read about that person. And you can kind of get in this rabbit hole of who are the people I need to kind of have my ear towards and be listening to.
That's cool. Amy, what else you got?
You said mastering Bitcoin and Blockchain Revolution.
Yep, I'll send you links to all of it too. Yeah.
Are there any podcasts that you would recommend for our podcast listeners and the group?
Yes, absolutely. And it's a woman podcast leader, a powerhouse. It is Unchained with Laura Shin. And I want to make sure I spell everything right. Yes. Laura Shin, she's an absolute rock star. And Unchained is her podcast. It's really great.
Okay, cool.
Good deal.
That is awesome. So tell us again, like how did you get started? Like where did your like curiosity and passion come from?
It's one of my favorite questions to ask other people I interview in this space too. It's like, how did you get into this?
Yeah.
So like I said, my background was in kind of social impact area. I was working with Heifer International while I was also getting a master's in digital currency. I thought Bitcoin was interesting because of my background in accounting and my kind of global just affinity for learning about different cultures. How do all of these different places work and operate? What's similar, what's different? And seeing something that was ubiquitous that could apply to all these different areas of the world was so fascinating to me. And just kind of also dating a tech startup guy who's now my husband. We were both kind of like that was like our fun thing. Like, let's talk, like, how's Bitcoin doing today? So that was kind of fun, just to have one friend, right? That can, you can share it with. And that was really just learning phase for a while. And then after I received that master's degree and was at Heifer, starting to build blockchain projects there. I've never truly left. I'm still their blockchain advisor and still love to work with them. They're really ahead of the game for
Oh, that's awesome.
international nonprofit space and in this technology. So it's been very exciting just how progressive and open their leadership is. But I've also kind of expanded to say I wanted to work with startups. I joined a few teams that I was able to have a lot of diverse experience in. And for a multitude of reasons, especially for why startups, fail. The most recent one we worked on, SEC implemented new regulation that made what we were doing basically not profitable, or, they're really exciting ideas. And I think somebody could even take it up and redo it, maybe restructure it in a better way. But they were the best learning experiences, met the coolest people, and had a lot of fun. So I was in love with it from that point on, and knew that's what I want. That's a rabbit hole I wanted to go down. So
Cool. That's really cool. So what is the top of the food chain for this industry? So from your title, like, where do you go? Are you where you want to be, or do you seek to go higher?
Yeah, I think about this a lot. I am very passionate about helping build projects. I kind of want to be on the build team, the product design team, the inside internal people, rather than the outside evangelizing marketing space, right? And so I try to. That's what's been great about the university is I went from this place of like a startup worked and then it failed, and then we started a project at Heifer and then we had to stop it. And at this intersection of like academia and business, it allows me to kind of be at like a hub and spoke type of job where it's like the projects never end. I can have my hands in all types of stuff and still have that stability and influence over helping build this community in Arkansas and teach people cryptocurrency and have them find their own critical thinking and passion behind it. And so that's what's been really fun about where I am now. And if something takes off, who knows? I would love to do something that can definitely impact people for the better, especially in places like financial inclusion it's so early in the stage, right? Like, it's so early in the industry. So we will see if and when the world gets ready to have something more large scale.
I think you're amazing. I think you're so amazing. I've learned so much today. I've taken like a whole page full of notes off of everything that you've said. I hope that our listeners today have done the same thing. And I'm so grateful that you gave us an hour of your time today to enlighten our community. We hope to see some women gather from Arkansas, in Forbes or something in years to come because of stuff they learned from Katheryn Carlisle about Bitcoin
Run with
and
it.
cryptocurrency. So, Amy, do you have any closing comments before we do a little housekeeping?
Yes, I do. And speaking of that, I have a whole note section pulled up on my phone here of everything that Katheryn said, but we'll do a follow-up just so y'all know in the group page with our Facebook group page where we'll list those resources that Katheryn recommends to us. And, if you have questions, we'll put Katheryn's contact information there too. The best thing about this group and this space and these online spaces is we want women to feel connected. Yep. We want women to feel like they can ask questions and feel empowered. Finances can be scary. We had a virtual on that. Cryptocurrency can be intimidating.
Yeah.
But what's important is that we get with educators like Katheryn and we ask these questions and we do our research and we go back to that. There's a whole community of women learning cryptocurrency out there. There's some crypto queens out there. We just have to find them and know where they're at.
Crypto queens. I love it.
Crypto queens. And I've learned so much today. This is something I've known Katheryn now for 6 years plus, but she's just a really dear friend. And what I love about her and what I said earlier is that I'm always learning from her, and she loves knowledge. And this is a community and arena that's always evolving and changing. And that's what I love about it, is it's about to, if it hasn't already, really expand and grow. And we need to hop on the train, and we need to learn, and not be scared of it. And it really is being curious and asking those questions. So I'm really glad we were able to do this. And
I think my quote of the day, but Katheryn, you'll have to say it for me. You don't have to be a minor to be a node on the network, but you do have to be a node on the network to be a minor. Was that how you said it?
Yeah, that was it.
I love it. I'm so excited. Yeah. I think this hit the equip part of our mission. Like I said, I think that we got some good nuggets, and I hope that many people are inspired from the information that they got today. I certainly am. I have some ideas, even as a single mom, with some things I can do to empower some of the women in my network, or even my kids with getting ready to go to college and things of that sort. I love that cryptocurrency really is a way to empower people, and it's another road to financial freedom, is really what it sounds like. So it's very exciting.
Well, thank you both so much. This was such a pleasure and such a fun thing I get to do on a Tuesday.
Well, thank you. You're officially a part of Blooming Gather.
Yes, and just so y'all know, we do have a couple things coming up. So we're having our first in-person event. We hope to do this at least 1 or 2 times a year. But Thursday, June 3rd, we're having our first gather table. It's coming up, and we still have spots. So we just want y'all to know you can go to our ticket link, and we'll send that out again this week, and make sure y'all are aware of when that will go down. But right now it's up and it's live, and we have some spots left. So go on and grab your ticket. We have a panel of 3 really amazing speakers: Heather Baker, Dr. Geraldine Jones, and Lena Albeck. And these women have been doing some powerhouse things in the state of Arkansas and beyond. So they're each going to be speaking to the group. We're going to eat together, and at 5:30 we're going to have headshots with Lucy Bear. And she's an amazing woman photographer here that's really built her business on making women feel beautiful behind a lens and feel like themselves. So she'll be kicking us off with the event at 5:30. So make sure to grab your ticket. We'll do it again in the fall, but we really want to have as many women as we can here in the spring.
And there's lots of fun goodies and stuff in store that we won't tell you about. You just have to get your ticket and come to indulge.
Yes.
And good food.
Oh yeah, lots of it.
Yes. So with that, okay, so our next Gather Virtual will be on June 8th. And June is Pride Month. So we are going to honor our friends in the LGBTQ community, and we're going to talk about how to have those unawkward conversations. So until then, you all have a great Tuesday. Buy your tickets to Gather Table next week on Thursday. We can't wait to see you. And thank you, Katheryn, again for joining us. It's been real. Everyone have a wonderful day.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Aren't today's speakers fantastic? Well, here's your chance to learn more from them. Grab a pen, write this down.
If you enjoyed learning about cryptocurrencies today and you want to learn more about blockchain and that underlying technology and other information about cryptocurrency, go visit our website at blockchain.uark.edu. That's the Blockchain Center of Excellence website. You can read our Women in Blockchain page that's highlighting amazing women leaders in this space, as well as check out our conference that's coming up on October 8th this year. It's going to be a hybrid conference that you can hear from amazing leaders in this industry, as well as locals in Arkansas that are running businesses that are leading the way in this technology. So we hope to see you October 8th, and you can contact us anytime at blockchain@uark.edu. Thanks.